photography that she checked 3 times.
Oh, yeah. They called that time when I was so mad.
They fixed it though.
The rest of me shut up. The rest one. Be quiet.
Oh, I can just find you so you won't have to do it this week. I'll just.
I'm gonna say it's really funny that.
I need number 54, that worksheet.
It'll be in the basket over there, in the pre-cal handouts. Janie. Alright guys, I guess there is no minute of silence today, but I need y'all to go through your binder and find the 5.3 worksheet. Should have numbered that as 54. I gave that to you last class and had asked you to try some of it. And last week was a B week, so I've not seen you since Wednesday, but this is your third and last class day to work on and get up to speed for section 5.3. On Wednesday we will have our 5.3 quiz. I will remind you that this quiz weighs more than other quizzes because unlike your other quizzes that you could also come back and test after we did another section or two, we don't have time in this section. So this one will count as a 50-point major assignment, a 50-point quiz. So basically that's a half test. So of course that could be good and it could be bad. If you don't prepare well, then it could backfire on you. So since I have asked you to try some of them, I think we should have plenty of time to give you time to finish and ask the questions you need to ask. However, when I ask you to try this, I didn't give you any structure on it. So some people may not have tried question A yet. Some people may not have tried question B yet. So let me give a few minutes, let's say just like 7 or 8 minutes. And if you have not tried question A, do it first. And then if you have not tried question B, do it second. Try all of them in order, so that way if there's any of them we need to go over, you will have given it a good shot on your own first. So 7 8 minutes from now you need to have at least questions A and B done. Okay, let's see if you have any questions about those two before we keep going. So, from your practice quiz, question A or question B, either one of those you'd like me to go over with you? Okay, then I'll give you a few more minutes and then I'll give you a chance to ask about A through D. So try question C before you go on to anything else, and then try question D after that. Look at them in order, please. Now I realize some of you will finish up quicker than others, especially if you did more or if you chose to do more for homework, even though you didn't have to. As usual, I will ask that you guys turn in some stuff in the Google Classroom, specifically the book assignment and this practice quiz. So, as you guys finish those up in class, you might want to go ahead and turn those in. Those need to be turned in before we start the quiz on Wednesday.
When is the semester exam review due?
The day of the semester exam. I'll take it up until we start the test. But realistically, you should be finished way before then. Yeah, so with our few class periods left, again, this is an A week, so today is just worrying about your 5.3 quiz by finishing up this practice worksheet, asking the questions you need to ask, turning in the homework you need to turn in, and studying. Then on Wednesday, we'll take the 5.3 quiz, and with the second half of class, you should finish up this semester exam review. If you remember before Thanksgiving break, one day I asked you to do like any 15 questions, and then I asked you to do any 10, I think, so that's like 25. So you should only have like 13 questions left total. So Wednesday in class, you should aim to, second half of class, you should aim to finish that after you finish the 5.3 quiz, and then we'll have Friday and Monday for you guys to make your note card, some class time to study, some class time to ask for some help. You want some reminders on stuff. So should be quite a bit of time built in. Now I don't know about exemption stuff. I know that it opened up last Monday and it said it was closing today, but I don't know if that means like it's already closed or if it's closing at the end of the day. But
I think it's closing
at noon? Okay. So if you did not apply for any exemptions in any of your classes and you meant to, you need to get on that, because that is one of, if you've seen the little flyers on the wall, all the requirements to exempt final exams this semester, the very first one is that you apply on time. So you will miss out if you don't do that. Okay, let me give you a few more minutes here, and then I'll interrupt and give you a chance to ask questions. It's only been 7 minutes, but again, I always will allow older questions. So, from your practice quiz, question A, B, C, or D, any of those that you tried and it's not matching up with the solutions, something's not working out. Yep,
You go over D.
I will. Okay, so the most common mistake on D, by far, is going to be that you guys try to do this, and then you finish working where secant equals -2. It's the same thing as cosine where it is -1/2. You could do the reciprocal both sides. But remember, this is equivalent to, in our notes, we talked about this one. Real basic example where we could find two solutions to this just in our head, but if you try to divide by a variable, you only got one solution. So dividing by a variable loses some of the correct answers. So in this case, if you started off by dividing by sign, that was the mistake that you took. You cannot divide both sides by a variable and expect all the answers to still be there. Instead, you could have added this over, and then both of these have a sign, so you can factor it out as a GCF. Notice you still have the secant plus 2. As I said, that was probably going to be part of the answers, but you were losing part of the answers. Now we have two factors that multiply to 0, so we can set the first factor equal to 0 and solve, and the second factor equal to 0 and solve. This one's ready to go, but this one we probably need to subtract the 2 over and take the reciprocal of both sides. So it looks like our answers should come from where sine is 0 and where cosine is -1/2. Okay, then to write out our answers, remember that they could look one way or another depending on the directions. So the whole front page says solve, whereas the whole back page gives solutions between 0 and 2 pi. So there's 4 places here, so you could say the first one plus 2 pi n, and then the second angle plus 2 pi n, and then the third spot plus 2 pi n, and the fourth location, 4 pi over 3 plus 2 pi n. And that is perfectly fine for your quiz. But I suspect when you check your answers online, these two red dots, these two red solutions are equidistant. You can add pi from this one to get to this one, and then you can add pi to go back to the original, and then you start getting coterminal. So they probably would combine this one and just say, starting at 0, add 1 pi in. But then these two are not equidistant. The distance from here to here is not the same as the distance from here to here. So these two still need their own answer. Those two would not condense. So either one of those. But the most important thing, and again, I don't know how to emphasize this more, I would write this on the top of your practice quiz, and I would look back at it before you started the real quiz. Dividing both sides by a variable, you lost all of these solutions. You got probably these two and not those two. So one mistake to lose half the work. But that is an important algebra topic. So okay, is that good?
Yeah.
Okay. Was anybody else going to ask about D? Have something more specific while it's up there? Okay. Somebody else? A, B, or C? Okay. And let's keep on going. So let me give you another 7 to 8 minutes. and then I will give you a chance to ask about A through F. I will warn you that one part of the solution to F looks kind of weird, and we would not do that to you on the quiz, but we can talk about it when y'all get there. All right. So let's look at anything A through F, anything on the front page. F? Yeah. So F is a perfectly fine question, but again, there is one part of the answer that I think is good for y'all to see, which is why I didn't take it off this worksheet. It's good for you to see the mathematics behind it, but it's not something that you need to stress out about for your quiz. We would not put this on your quiz. But just at first glance, when I see F, it looks like a quadratic because the biggest exponent is a 2. And anytime you solve a quadratic, you need to put everything on one side set equal to 0. And then usually with quadratics, occasionally you have to do quadratic formula, but we don't pull that or we don't throw that at you in this section. But most of the time it's going to factor anyway, and factoring is a lot quicker than quadratic formula. But make sure that you factor it correctly. Remember that if you need to, you could go over here to the side, pretend like cosecant thetas are just x's, and then ask yourself how this factors. And the way this factors is the same way this factors. X minus 4, cosecant theta minus 4. X plus 1, cosecant plus 1. Same idea. Okay, I could set this equal to 0 and solve by adding the 4 over, and set this equal to 0 and solve by subtracting the 1 over. And of course, all of these questions, you have to go to the unit circle before you can write out your answer. But nobody memorizes secant values, but we can take the reciprocal of both sides. Reciprocal, reciprocal, also over here, reciprocal of both sides. If you think of -1 as a fraction, his reciprocal is still -1. So this part is perfectly fine for the quiz. There is one place where sine is -1. That is at 3 pi over 2. And anything coterminal to it based on the directions. This is the part, we would not throw this at you on the quiz. But this is saying the angle that has a sine of a fourth. So at first you might say, well, I don't know where that is, and that's true. And you might be tempted to say that there's no angle that gives you a sine of a fourth. That's not true. Sine hits every value from -1 to 1. It's just that we don't memorize the angle that has a sine of a fourth. If you think about it, we memorize very few angles. We memorize 3 angles per quadrant. We memorize when sine is a half, square root of 2 over 2, square root of 3 over 2. We don't memorize where sine is a fourth. So, if sine is a half at 30 degrees, you're going to be tempted to think that sine is a fourth at 15 degrees, and that's not quite right, but it's pretty close. But it is about right here. And right here. Because remember, sine's the y value. Both of these have a sine of a fourth. So, mathematically, again, this would not be on the quiz, but since there is an angle that has the sine of a fourth, and I just don't know what the size of that angle is, there's a workaround that you can do to still talk about this angle. To talk about this angle, I can say the sine, or the angle that has a sine of a fourth by doing inverse sine of 1/4. That means the angle that has a sine of a fourth. And anything coterminal to it. But then also over here, since sine is the y value, if there's a y value over here with the fourth, then directly across somewhere over here there's a y value with the fourth. So this angle is almost at pi, and the amount that it's missing to get from pi is the same as this angle. The angle that has a sine of a fourth. So your solution should look something like that. Again, I like for y'all to see this process in mathematics. Sometimes when you don't know the angle, the best thing you can do is use inverse like that. And since that exists, it kind of is important to mention it. But again, you're welcome to put an X through there, and no, not on quiz. You don't have to worry about that showing up like that on the quiz, but still good for you to see. This part certainly is fair game. Quadratic, everything on one side, factor, set each factor equal to 0, take the reciprocal of both sides, knowing the unit circle, knowing how to write your answer. Okay, Colin, is that okay? Okay. Anybody else for F while it's still up? Okay, anybody else A through F? Yes. Which one?
E.
E? Sure. Let's see, 2 secant squared of some angle plus tangent squared of that angle. Take away 3 is supposed to come out to be 0. Trying to think, somebody in my B-Day class on Friday worked this one in a pretty creative way. I don't remember what they did though. When I see, I'll have to think about that. But when I see this, and I see this mismatch here, secant squareds and tangent squareds, I really would prefer if I could replace this with tangent stuff or replace this with secant stuff. I don't want 2 different trig functions going on here if I don't have to. So the most common, most likely one to use would be the first Pythagorean identity. But just like that thing on your desk, you could take all of this, divide everything by cosine squared, and get one of the other Pythagorean identities. And this is the key that's going to allow us to rewrite this with just one type of trig function. So instead of the secant squared, I could replace it with tangent squared plus 1, or I could replace tangent squared with secant squared minus 1. Both are true, so whichever one you think looks easier is what you should do. I'm personally going to use this one just because I know tangent values are a little bit harder to find on the unit circle, so I would kind of prefer not to have tangent hanging around if possible. So instead of saying tangent squared, I could say secant squared minus 1. And again, I'm not in charge of the quiz this section, but I would be very surprised if you didn't have at least one, if not 2 questions that start off this way. Understanding why these Pythagorean identities are supposed to help you make this look a little bit nicer. Now, it shouldn't be too different from like question C, I think. You could add like terms. We've got 3 of these and a minus 4. Guess it's supposed to be there. You could add the 4 and divide the 3. You can square root both sides as long as you don't forget plus or minus. I'll highlight that because that's still a very common mistake. And in this section especially, you need to know how to deal with the square root of a fraction. That's like square rooting the numerator over square rooting the denominator. Finally, I don't memorize secant values, but I could take the reciprocal of both sides. Now it looks unit circle ready. I can think about where on the unit circle cosine is positive square root of 3 over 2 and negative square root of 3 over 2. It's 4 locations. Based on the directions, we could list the first one and get his coterminal solutions, and the second one plus 2 pi n, and the third one plus 2 pi n, and the fourth one plus 2 pi n. If you want to condense, you could get this down into 2 statements. So notice these red solution dots are equally spaced out by pi. So if you wanted to just name the first one and say plus pi n, that would get both of those. And then you could list the second one, 5 pi over 6, and just add pi n, and that would get both of those. But that first step is super important, because if you don't have that in your toolbox ready to use, there could be a question or 2 that you can't start, and then no partial credit on a couple questions is going to hurt a little bit more. Okay. Are you okay with the start of that, Luke? Okay. And the second half of the question? Okay. Is anybody else going to ask about E, needs something particular while it's still up there? Okay. So notice all of these answers, A through F, the answers had something like plus 2 pi n, plus 2 pi n, or maybe plus pi n if there was some condensing involved. But that's because all of the directions said solve. Now that most of you are flipping over, the directions have changed, just like our notes did both ways. Just like the book assignment sometimes asked you to solve, sometimes asked for solutions between 0 and 2 pi. Your answers on the back page should look a little bit different. They should not have the plus 2 pi n. It would be incorrect to have that. All right, so let me set aside another 7-8 minutes. Try to see what you would do with G and H. And then I'll check back in, and we'll do one more time after that. And then you should know which question types you need to look over and try again. Alright, so now let's look at anything from question A to question H. A through H. G? Okay, G is kind of a unique question. You might want to look at the back of your notes. Where this is the one that I said that you could do it algebraically, but you're going to make the question much more difficult than it has to be. Anytime I see that you're adding or subtracting one from sine or cosine to get the other one, then I would just do guess and check. Because there are only 4 places on the unit circle where sine and cosine are spaced out by 1. That would be these quadrantal angles. So I'm just going to test those 4 points out and see if I add 1 to sine, which of course is the y value, if it's cosine, the x value. So at 0 radians, if I add 1 to sine, it equals cosine. So it looks like 0 is a solution. At pi over 2, if I add 1 to sine, it becomes 2, but cosine is 0, so those are not equal. Add 1 to sine does not equal negative 1. Add 1 to sine, it does equal 0. And then based on the directions, it would be incorrect to put plus 2 pi in, so there's your 2 solutions. Only 2 places where those are true. And of course, you can still check these. If you're willing to plug in 0, you get 0 plus 1 equals 1. That works. I'm basically doing the same thing that I was doing as I went around though. Negative 1 plus 1 equals 0, so that one works. Okay, others, A through H. Okay, now let's do one more and try to finish up I and J. And then of course any other question that you may have had that you were playing catch up on. So one more timer here, but again, as you guys finish, you really should go ahead and turn those in Google Classroom just in case you forget them, just in case you lose them. That way you wouldn't have to redo them to get your homework points. And hopefully you've got a little bit of time that you can look back at the questions you were struggling with and maybe retry them a second time to help prepare for your quiz. Okay. Let's try it one last time. Anything on any of the practice quiz, especially questions I or J? I think I is exactly the same as the one on your notes, but we can go ahead and discuss it anyway, in case there's something specific. That you want to ask about. Okay, so I and also H were considered one of these multi-angle questions. So it's not just a theta or an x, it's a 2 theta or a 3 theta or a 1/2 theta. But the question still starts off the same way. You should undo all the arithmetic that you can. In this question, all you can undo is the times 2. And then for these multi-angle questions, I feel like the best way to work these, and what I talked about on your notes, is temporarily pretend like it just says a regular theta, not a 3 theta. And then start to work it that way. Cosine is negative square root of 3 over 2 in 2 places. So that would be at 5 pi over 6. And anything coterminal. And then 7 pi over 6 plus anything coterminal. But the big catch is that we didn't really solve for theta. We solved for 3 theta. So to go from that, from 3 theta equals to just theta equals, we would like to divide by 3. And so to divide this by 3, I need to divide everything by 3. So that would be 5 pi over 18 plus 2 pi thirds. And then divide every one of these by 3. That would be 7 pi 18ths plus 2 pi thirds. And if the direction said solve, I could circle this. This would be my answer. Unfortunately, this one did not say solve. It says give the answers between 0 and 2 pi. So we have to use these two to extract every solution between 0 and 2 pi. So one of them is going to be 5 pi over 18. And then there should be another one if we add 2 pi thirds to that. Now to add 2 pi thirds, I really want this as a common denominator for here and here. So times 6 times 6. Adding 2 pi thirds is like adding 12 pi 18ths. So 5 pi 18ths plus 12 pi 18ths would be 17 pi 18ths. That's between 0 and 2 pi. In fact, it's less than 1 pi because the denominator is bigger. Then I can add 2 pi thirds again, or add 12 pi 18ths again. So 17 pi 18ths plus 12 pi 18ths would be 29 pi 18ths. That's still between 0 and 2 pi, because 2 pi would be 36 pi 18ths. I have to try again, so add another 12 pi 18ths. That would be 41 pi 18ths. And that's bigger than 2 pi, because again, 2 pi would be 36 pi 18ths. So I have used this formula to get these 3 solutions, and now I need to use this formula to get some more solutions. One of them should be 7 pi 18ths, and this says if I add 2 pi thirds to that, I would get another solution. So add 2 pi thirds, which is the same thing as adding 12 pi 18ths. 7 pi 18ths plus 12 pi 18ths would be 19 pi 18ths. Add it again, that would be 31 pi 18ths. Add it again, that would be 43 pi 18ths. That one's finally bigger than 2 pi, so I can quit. These 6 answers would be the answers between 0 and 2 pi that work. So again, on this type of question, you're really hoping the solutions just say solve, because it's less work. We could have quit right here. But if the directions say give all the answers between 0 and 2 pi, you have to utilize these formulas to extract everything that would work. Okay. All right, was there something else in that? That's good. Okay, anything else, Jay or otherwise? Yeah. I will. J is a quick one. The only thing you can do in J is try to divide both sides by 4, and you get sine is -3. And then hopefully you know what to do with that pretty quickly, because I don't want you to waste a bunch of your time. But you should know that this is not possible or no solution for a couple different reasons now. When you think of the sine graph, he only goes up as high as 1, down as low as -1. When you think of the unit circle, sine gets as big as 1, as low as -1. And when we memorize the range of sine, -1 to 1, that's what we're referring to. What numbers make sense for sine to equal and can never be smaller than -1. All right, you guys still have about 20 minutes. So again, the bookwork and the practice worksheet need to be turned in for homework points. As long as I have those before we start the quiz on Wednesday, you still get full credit, but you should just go ahead and turn them in now if you've got them done. I'll probably have some time to try to grade some early today, so you guys know I try to let you know if it looks incomplete or something so that you have a chance to fix it and still get full points. But y'all have about 20 minutes. So if you see something else you need help with, of course, please ask. But your quiz on Wednesday should be pretty similar to this practice quiz. About the same length, about the same difficulty of questions, similar skills. So any of these that you missed the first go around, if you force yourself to practice them a couple more times, you'll probably think that the real quiz is right on par with that. So again, Wednesday we'll do quiz first half of class, finish up semester test review second half of class, and then you will have Monday and Wednesday. So Friday of this week, Monday of next week for class time to study. Also, I don't know if they put this in student announcements or not, but you guys know normally Mondays are no movement days for advisory. That will not be true next week. Next week, Monday and Tuesday are both movement days. So they're trying to give you one more opportunity to go see your teachers and get some help or do some makeup work or whatever. But next week, Monday and Tuesday are the only normal days. So that would be your last advisory opportunities. In fact, I think you even need to sign up for Monday and Tuesday of next week today when you sign up for prime time and advisory. So just a heads up there. But give me just a second to finish up this thing I've got going on down the hall, and then I'd be happy to help with anything else y'all find.